Tonight we're leading off with politics. 3 of Portland's current city council members think they would be a fantastic new mayor for the city. We've heard from Renee Gonzalez and Mingus Mapps, and so tonight we're going to hear from Carmen Rubio. That's our big story tonight. Carmen Rubio was born and raised in Hillsborough, the granddaughter of immigrants who came to this country as migrant workers. She's the first in her family to graduate from college and later became the first Latina on the Portland City Council. Her background includes a decade of leading the Latino network and then time working as a policy advisor inside Portland City Hall. She was elected to the City Council in 2020. Our Blair Best has wanted to hear from all of the candidates and now from her on what's her plan on dealing with our homeless crisis.
Is improving, but we still have our work cut out for us.
Portland City Commissioner and mayoral candidate Carmen Rubio believes the city should take on more responsibility when it comes to addressing homelessness.
We need to step up and step in and roll up our sleeves and finally piece together like a true system that works.
What about this current system in your eyes is not working?
The current system, in my opinion, is not a system. I feel like we have a collection of really great programs and efforts, but it's not knitted together in a seamless system across all jurisdictions. For a long time, the county has been doing the problems and going at it. We've had a piece of it, but not really in a way that is at a high level systemic. And I believe that what the situation calls for now, what the landscape is now, we all need to assume responsibility for this issue. And that's where I feel it's really necessary for the city as leaders. We need to lean in, not retract right now.
Because the city can only do so much when
Correct.
It comes to homelessness. They have to rely on the county and the state
Yes.
for a lot. How would you approach the relationship with the county?
So the county relationship is critical. We're interdependent. Whether people want us to be or not, that is how it's structured. So we have a responsibility to make it work. I completely reject the premise that we can take our toys and go home. We can't do that. We're leaders. We're elected to serve the public, and the public counts on us to work it out and to figure it out. That's our job. So we need to stay at the table and keep staying at the table until we work through these intractable problems, but together.
If elected, would you continue to have the city fund the county's Joint Office of Homeless Services?
Absolutely. And the reason I say that is because we do not have the ability to, like I said, take our toys and go home. We have to actually figure this out. And that those funds are our lever and our leverage to making sure that we're good partners. That together with trust and leadership.
Do you feel like the county's been using those funds appropriately?
I feel like the county is starting to be more open and more responsive, not only just to the city, but also to the public demand. So in that respect, we still have more work to be negotiated, but it is moving in a good direction.
If elected, will people still be sleeping on the sidewalks?
Probably. I mean, this is not something that's going to be solved at all overnight. It took us decades to get into a situation where we're in a crisis. It will take us a long time to get out. But my hope is for a functioning system that we have the on-ramps for people to find the supports that they need should they want to, that we have a system that's functioning and it's there and ready to receive them. I believe in shelters. I believe that we need to deal with the immediacy of the urgency on the street right now. That hasn't been a practice consistently in other places.
And how will you handle the people who choose not to go into shelter?
You know, that is a more challenging thing. You know, we have, obviously, we have choice. My role is to make sure that whatever we do, you know, that it is done centered in our Portland values. So it's like done with accountability and also compassion. So that's the lens that I would bring.
What does that look like on the streets, accountability and compassion?
I think it means, like, you know, we have the role of making sure and enforcing that the rights of way are accessible to everybody. And so that's one way that we have to be ready to use the levers that we have, but we can do so without it being a hammer.
And outreach workers is a really critical piece in all of this. And currently the city employs 6. Do you think that's enough to handle the crisis we're seeing?
I absolutely believe we have completely underfunded Portland Street Response, and I am one of those folks who really sees the value of Portland Street Response being the connective tissue of the work and the clear roles of the city and the clear roles of the county.
That's the group responding to those experiencing a nonviolent mental or behavioral health crisis.
We need to clearly commit to it at the top and give it the capacity it needs to stand on its own and demonstrate what it can do, and also be available to and accessible to all four corners of the city.
So do you see that outreach workers need to have more of a presence on our streets as opposed to law enforcement?
I believe that we need both. I think that it's not an either-or situation for me. I do believe that we can do multiple approaches at the same time because everybody's situation is different and every incident is very different. But I do believe in outreach workers as well, with clear goals and a clear understanding of what their role and their work is.
What do you have to say to voters who have just completely lost faith in our local government's ability to handle this crisis?
I say that I hear you and I see you, and I understand the frustration. I hear it every single day. I hear it in businesses that I go talk to, in community, neighborhoods, my own neighborhood, in my own family even, you know, frustrations expressed about it. And I will say that you are right. We have not had a system that is functional and it is meeting the moment. And that's where our work is. It's unprecedented. Yes, we could not have expected it post-COVID. Yes. But is it still our responsibility to stay at the table? Yes, it is.
Blair's with me now. That was really interesting because it was not a short interview, but I have to say I was surprised at how little she had to say.
Yeah, she didn't have many concrete plans on how she would address homelessness, but I will say I've interviewed her a handful of times and she's always been careful in the way that she chooses her words. And I feel as if she's always been maybe a little hesitant to take any bold stance on something as big as, say, the homeless crisis.
And with this series of reports, you've interviewed the other major leading candidates, and they all have specific steps that they're going to take.
They do, whether they're realistic or not. They all had some sort of a specific plan of what they would do, cut homelessness in half, get everyone off the streets. And what she had more was of how she plans to approach this crisis, approach the relationship with the county and her fellow commissioners.
Interesting.
That's what I gathered.
Yeah. Well, and as I was paying attention, you asked her about the Joint Office of Homeless Services. Did she approve of what they're doing now? She didn't answer that. What about people who are homeless and won't go to shelters? She didn't answer that. What about people who are fed up with the system that she's a big part of and it's not working? She really didn't have an answer for that either.
Yeah, and those are all really big questions, really big topics. I'm not sure she has all the answers right at this moment. But like I said, she was careful. She was careful with how she answered those because I think she knows how controversial those topics are.
Right, and it's hard to thread the needle and make everybody happy.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I appreciate you doing these really because you give us a little slice. It's much better than like a 30-second soundbite or even a 15-second soundbite. So thanks for interviewing all these top candidates. I think it's very helpful.
Yeah, me too.
Now, it's your turn. What's going through your mind after hearing from Commissioner Rubio? Send us your thoughts, will you? You could email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. And if you missed any of Blair's one-on-one interviews with the top mayoral candidates, you can find them right now on KGW+. That's our free streaming app that you can find on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Just search KGW and then download it to your home screen so that you can catch up on the story whenever you miss an episode.